never rests.
Counting careless in the sky. What a thrilling time to be alive.
What is up, everybody? It is a Tuesday night edition of the Georgia Show. I'm Palmer Toms, Rusty Mansell, and we are coming to you without Jake Rowe. Jake Rowe is walked a mile and a half, 10 miles. And the man is taking in Disney World.
He is. That's I got 3 buddies down there right now. Actually 4. Our good friend DJ Shockley, he's down there, and I've been trying to get these guys to send me step counts. One of my good friends yesterday sent me one. I think he was 24,000 steps yesterday, and I mean, I'm just so.
Jake just dropped in with his from today. Said he turned the phone off for an hour to save battery, and he still got to walk back to the car. But 19,307, 8.7 miles for that man. So we feel you, Jake Rowe. Rusty, I mean, you're on your feet a lot at some of those MVP camps. You walking 8.7 miles those days?
No. So the last MVP camp I had a double. It's like 3 weeks ago, and I think I got like 16,000. But you think about it, that was from 8 in the morning. I didn't leave the field from 8 in the morning until 5:30 in the afternoon. So that was a long day for me. But 24,000 yesterday from one of my good buddies. Man, he said they opened one part and shut the other one down. So there's some sore dudes, man. There's some Epsom salt, some thick heel New Balance. There's a lot of old dudes down at Disney right now making a business decision.
Yep. Well, we heard from Kirby today. I was there, the representing DawgsHQ, and sounds like there might have been some business decisions made with Roderick Robinson running on the field on Saturday. Georgia holds their first scrimmage of the spring. This past Saturday. They've got 2 to go, one this coming Saturday, and then, of course, G-Day on April 13th. Rusty, you told me to take this away, so, be warned.
Yeah,
I'm going to talk. Tell me what
the vibe was. Tell me what the vibe was today.
Yeah, Kirby kind of summarized it for us best in saying, in typical Kirby Smart fashion, he's like, hey, for every good thing that the offense did, that's something bad that the defense did. He pointed out, he was like, Arian Smith made a big play, but we had a bust on defense. Dylan Bell made a big catch, but Dylan Bell makes big catches, and that means somebody didn't defend him all that well. Roderick Robinson runs pretty well, but that means we're not tackling very well. So you can, if you pick through, what he's saying, you listen read between the lines, sounds like the offense won the day.
The theme over the spring, kind of what we've heard. And I think you kind of have to expect that with the offensive line experience, with the experienced wide receivers, with the experienced quarterback. And then you take the defense and you take out Smile Munden, you take out Malachi Starks, you take out 2 guys that are vital in the middle, and you take out Ty Ingram Dawkins, experience. Christian Miller's banged up. So you look at the defensive side and some of the inexperience, replacing Kamari Lasser, Tyreek, and Devon Bullard. So there's a lot of inexperienced guys running over there right now, and I would imagine the offense is really giving them some fits, and they should.
You've got four new defensive backs back there between replacing Kamari, replacing Tyke, replacing Bullard, replacing Malachi this spring. Dalen Everett's the only one that has any sort of starting experience out there that's running around. And obviously he went through a full season last year, but he's still young. It's not like he's been in this program for, 4 or 5 years. He's just a junior, third-year guy, went through his own growing pains last year. But you've got Daniel Harris and Julian Humphrey. Ellis Robinson is in the mix there. You've got Janelle Aguero. You've got Ja'Cory Thomas, Dan Jackson, KJ Bolden's getting in there. A lot of youngsters on that defensive backfield going up against a lot of veteran players. And look, even the guys that are new to Georgia, they're veterans. They've been through college ball. They get what it's like to play, SEC high caliber Power 5 football, because Colby Young, London Humphreys, Michael Jackson, they did that. Dylan Bell, Dominic Lovett, they did that last year. these guys are and they're going up against a quarterback that is capable of dicing them up. So, yeah, you read between the lines a little bit, and look, it sounded like Gunnar Stockton had a pretty good day. Kirby talked about, he makes some mistakes where you can tell that he hasn't played all too much, but at the same time, he understands the mistake. He comes out of it and he says, hey, coach, I should have done this. I should have done that. And it's like, hey, okay, you know what you're doing. You just need the reps. And obviously last year being the third stringer, being a scout team quarterback at times, both last year and the year before, he's not getting those reps. And so, that's where G-Day is going to be so big for Gunnar. Obviously the Orange Bowl, the second half of that game that he was working with some of the Georgia first teamers and going against Florida State's, squad that was out there. That's where that's so valuable. So, yeah, I mean, I think read between the lines and you can see that the offense won the day. But overall, you listen to a head coach that's seen a lot of these scrimmages, not only here in Athens, but in Tuscaloosa and throughout his time in college football. He understands that, hey, just because somebody makes a big play in a scrimmage doesn't mean that they're going to show up on Saturdays in the fall. That one big play, sometimes that's making the most of an opportunity. And, I hate to bring up the bad example of Matt Landers, but that's somebody that made a lot of plays in scrimmages. And then does it translate to the fall? And, it's a sign that it can translate. It's a sign that all the skills are there, that you've got somebody that's capable of making plays. Mm-hmm. Just because you're making spring scrimmage plays doesn't mean you're going to make fall SEC plays.
You're building confidence for Georgia staff. I mean, I know as a player, you're trying to make the best of your opportunity, but for Georgia staff, especially defensively, they got to know where to line up. They can deal with some mistakes and they can deal with some coverages. You get beat one-on-one. But one thing's kind of a common theme with Glenn Schumann and Kirby Smart defense. They won't play you if you can't line up. And there's some guys that have not been on the field that are more talented that haven't played early on because they didn't know where to line up. And that's such a big deal. And I say the middle of the field is so important. The two inside backers and the two safeties in this defense make all the calls. That's why it's so important. And that's why when you look at Raylan Wilson and C.J. Allen in the SEC championship game without Smile Munden and those guys, without Jamon Dumas-Johnson, those guys had to make some calls, and they made some wrong, and that's okay. You had to live, die by that. But in the springtime, I think the biggest thing is bust. Can you line up and can you make calls? Because you're not going to play at Georgia. You're not going to play at Georgia in that middle of the field. There's two inside backers and those two safeties. I think that's why Georgia's got some confidence in Dan Jackson. I think that some of these guys played a little earlier than others. And it's just big. It's big time right now. Even when Malachi Stark's out, those guys are getting invaluable experience in the back end. Smile Munden's out, so you got C.J. Allen, Raylan Wilson, all these guys, Jalen Walker, everybody getting more and more experience there being able to make these calls.
Yeah, and you mentioned the inside linebackers there. The good news is Georgia's not going to need to break in new guys there. They've got Smile Munden that'll be around this fall. They've got C.J. Allen and Raylan Wilson that obviously got so much experience last year. And then Jalen Walker, somebody that got a lot of experience. And, whether you consider him an inside linebacker, edge rusher, whatever you want to call him, he's a dynamic football player. And, so that's so big for Georgia to have that experience at that middle level. You've obviously got a lot of experience at the front level as well, on the front lines, the line of scrimmages where, Kirby has been very much on the record from the day that he came to Georgia. That's where SEC football games are won. So you've got a lot of experience up front. You don't necessarily have as much in the back end. And so that's where Georgia's got some growing pains. And like we said, there's a lot of receivers, a quarterback that can expose that. Talking about one of those receivers, Dominic Lovett is somebody that we heard from today, and I'll have a story up on him tomorrow morning. Man, he feels like he's due for a much bigger year this year. Just listening to him talk, he feels confident. He feels like he's got a full understanding of, Rusty, everything that you mentioned about the defensive side of the ball and not busting. that's what he's trying to learn. Obviously offense, it's a little bit easier to just say, hey, go, see ball, get ball, run out there, run by everybody and go catch it and keep running until you're in the end zone. But with Lovett, I think that there's a little bit more that can be, tapped into a little bit. Obviously he was such a talented player at Missouri and Georgia didn't need him to be that guy. They had Brock Bowers. And look, you look at Dominic Lovett's best games, it's when Brock Bowers wasn't on the field. And so I'm interested to see what he looks like. He's got a lot of confidence this year. Feels like he's got that playbook down. And I think that he not only has an opportunity to be a big time player for Georgia, but I think he's got an opportunity to be a big time leader, because you look at, 3 transfer wide receivers. He's been in their shoes. He understands what it's like and what it takes to learn Georgia's playbook. He said, hey, he was telling us, he was like, hey, last year, Rah and I, we asked from the day that we got here, hey, can we get the full playbook? We don't want, we want to have it. Obviously, we're going to do the install, do it in however many plays a week or whatever. But we want the full playbook and we want to be able to test each other. We're experienced guys. And he said, they would break it down and test each other, spending time away from the facility and, away from the practice field. They would work on that together. And so I think that's something that obviously Georgia needs Colby Young to be a contributor. They would love to have London Humphreys and Michael Jackson be contributors. Michael Jackson, and Young, those two guys, this is their last year of eligibility. So Georgia, they want to be contributors. Georgia needs them to be contributors. And obviously with how high they were on London Humphreys coming out of the portal, he's a guy that can contribute. So you're looking to those wide receivers to be contributors. And I think Dominic Lovett, and I'd throw Arian Smith in there, but Dominic has that interesting experience of having been in their shoes as a transfer player, that was thrown into the fire early on.
I talked to a high school coach that went down to practice one day recently, and he has a young player on the team. So he got to sit in on some meetings, and he sat in with the wide receivers, and he told me, he said, Rusty, Dominic Lovett is the example guy. He's the example guy on route running. He's the example guy on how to stem a DB. He's the example guy on how to block out on the edge. He goes, he is the guy. When they show an example, James Coley goes, all right, everybody watch Dominic right here. Watch what he does. He goes, man, he is dialed in. He's ready to go. So he had a great practice, caught 4 or 5 balls. Obviously, Colby Young's got a lot of buzz around him, and he certainly earned that. Arian Smith had a great scrimmage on Saturday, but overall consistency and what you're talking about, what people have seen before, I think Dominic Lovett is going to take that step for Georgia. He's not going to be the only one, but I'm confident that Dominic Lovett is going to be a big-time weapon for Carson Beck. I think Mike Bobo is going to dial up a lot of stuff he's done in the past with the guys in slot, trying to get some one-on-one coverages with them, and I expect Dominic Lovett to be a huge piece of this offense. But he's a complete player now. It's a totally different route tree coming from Missouri to Georgia. You're going to block. You're going to do things in Georgia that you probably wouldn't ask to do there. And kudos to Dominic Lovett. He didn't kind of shy away from that. And he also knew he was in an offense with Brock Bowers, who's going to be a top 10 NFL draft pick. He understood that. He's played, waited his time, and I think Dominic Lovett's going to be a huge piece of this offense this year.
Absolutely, absolutely. Well, before we transition here, let's get a word from our sponsor, My Perfect Franchise. Jake threw this on me, and so if I'm a little bit rusty with this copy here, you know why. But myperfectfranchise.net. Are you a displaced corporate executive or wanting to put your career in your own hands? Or are you an experienced entrepreneur wanting to diversify? Well, Andy Ludicky and myperfectfranchise.net can help. Andy is a huge college sports fan and franchise veteran, having owned multiple franchises and businesses. Using his expertise, he helps others find their American dream through a variety of consultation and evaluation process. Call Andy and put your life and career in your own hands. Best of all, his services are 100% free to you. So what do you have to lose? Find your perfect franchise at myperfectfranchise.net. All right, Rusty.
Yeah, good job there. Good job. They'll let me do the reading. But yeah, thank you for them being involved with us for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. And, good stuff from them. Rusty, as we talk about, Georgia having an experienced quarterback, and that quarterback position, we mentioned it with Carson Beck, Gunnar Stockton. Quarterbacks on the radar this week. And obviously there were some big visitors in town that got to see the scrimmage, a couple that were in town today. And one of those that was in town today is making a decision this week.
Yeah. 2025 quarterback out of the Philadelphia area, Matt Zollers, is here with his family right now as we speak, probably wrapping up their visit here in the next, say, 2 hours. Got on campus Tuesday morning around 11 a.m., went to Alabama yesterday, went to lunch with Kirby Smart, Mike Bobo, and then had meetings. I had some academic meetings, got to sit in on the quarterback meetings, got to watch practice. We'll finish up a meeting tonight with his mom and dad, Kirby Smart, Mike Bobo, a lot of the offensive guys. They will leave for Atlanta first thing in the morning and fly back home. He has a decision Thursday. He's going to make a decision at some point Thursday. Penn State, Pitt, Alabama, Missouri, Georgia, some of the schools mentioned the most here. I personally think I would say the serious contenders are Georgia, Missouri, and Penn State. And Penn State's been on him the longest. They have been locked in on him for a while. Georgia had recruited him, but Mike Bobo went to Philadelphia, watched him throw, and offered him on the spot in a workout before school or during school one day, and then went back up there again. And this young man they've had on campus, I think, in late January. He was back again, obviously, today. So this is a big decision. And this I said this with our Josh Newberg on the On3 Recruit YouTube channel. This is one of the first big dominoes to fall, because let's just hypothetically say he picks he does pick Georgia. That's going to change some boards for a lot of people, because Georgia is not taking – they would, but those two kids aren't going to the same school. So you have, Juju Lewis, obviously a name that a lot of Georgia fans know. And that young man is committed to USC. He was at USC this past weekend, and he came out in an article today with Chad Simmons and said he's still strong to USC, but he's going to take his visits. And if Georgia were to get Matt Zollers, say Thursday, I think other than maybe a portal guy for some depth, I think that's where they would go with quarterback in this class. And Juju Lewis is still a major target. It's almost like which one gets it, whichever one's going to make this decision. And Zollers just happens to be the one that's going to make his decision a little bit earlier. Penn State's in there. Missouri had a massive visit. Everyone I talked to my guy Tim Watts, our Bama online publisher, and been in business for a long time. Talked to him this morning a little bit, and kind of coming off the Alabama visit, it felt like they had a good visit, but kind of Missouri is the team that had a little bit of buzz right there. So talked to Sean Fitz, our Penn State publisher, for On3, and he said that Penn State kind of felt like Missouri might be the biggest competition for him. So what can Georgia do today? This is someone they've recruited really hard. They got the last visit, and that might be a really good thing, because from my understanding, NIL would not be the final decision. And if that's the case, Georgia's very much in this thing, because they check a lot of boxes. The one thing I'll tell you about Georgia, if you go see them in person, and you see that offensive line as a quarterback, and you see the kids they just signed, if I'm a parent, I'll feel good about that, because your kid's going to be upright a lot, and they're going to put playmakers around you. Now, there's going to always be competition at Georgia. You're never going to be guaranteed anything. So we'll see. Not really ready to say Georgia, but I'm just saying, if he were to go to Georgia, I think it's going to change some boards. Even if he doesn't go to Georgia, it's going to change some boards at some schools. So we'll see how this thing goes. But I think this is one of the first big dominoes in the 2025 class to fall, with this quarterback coming off the board on Thursday.
Yeah, no doubt. I mean, you think about this, and from the Georgia perspective, or wherever he lands, April, being able to land a kid like that, April 4th, that is probably somebody that is going to become a primary recruiter for all of the skilled players, offensive players, and that's the kind of kid that you build a class around. Comes in at number 5 quarterback in the country, a top 50 prospect, number 49 overall.
Can I break in?
Yeah.
And by the way, if you're watching this at some point, welcome Steve Wilfong, one of the
no doubt. Yes.
I mean, Steve Wilfong, one of my really good friends, but one of the best recruiting insiders, national members of media there is. And I feel like we have Chad Simmons and Steve Wilfong for DawgsHQ and on 3. And listen, there's a lot of good people in the industry, but it starts and stops with those two at the top. I mean, those two are the hardest working guys, been in it the longest, most respected, and we got both. And what I'm getting at is, as we take this and as we're on live right now, I get a text message from Steve Wilfong. Check with some people around Zollers, still on campus, breaking down film with staff. And I quote, "This has been a really good day for sure in Athens." So, there you go. Where does it go, man? Where does this thing go? It's a huge decision right here. And I think people thought Georgia's completely all in on Juju Lewis, and they are recruiting Juju Lewis with a committable offer, but they're also recruiting Matt Zollers with a committable offer. And one of those two is probably going to take it. Maybe could be which one does it first. If Zollers takes that, I don't see Juju Lewis ending up at Georgia. And that's just, even though he's committed to USC, still taking visits, he may end up at USC. But he's still taking visits to multiple schools, multiple visits. So obviously that thing is opened a little more, publicly, and I think people are aware of that. So there's a lot going on. There's a lot going on. But I want to mention that for Steve Wolf. I want to welcome him, man, and what it does for DawgsHQ. And if you're a subscriber there, I don't even have to say anything. The information he's putting out, man. So just thank you, not only for everybody here on YouTube, but thank you everybody that subscribes to DawgsHQ. It's been great. And adding Steve Wilfong to our team with Chad Simmons, I mean, it's not beating it.
It's special.
You're not going to beat that one.
Yeah, no. I mean, Zollers, the number, going back to him, number 17 quarterback or number 17 player, number 3 quarterback, according to the in-house On 3 rankings, which I know Steve is going to end up helping out with some. So, certainly a big domino to fall.
Two talented kids, man. Two talented kids.
And look, I'm not sure that you can go wrong.
No.
I mean, thinking about this from a Missouri's perspective, because that's to me, Pittsburgh, I believe he's got a brother that's on the team there. Penn State obviously being from Pennsylvania. But Missouri's the one that feels a little bit out of place. You've seen them win some big recruiting battles, but that's typically been kids from Missouri. Luther Burden fell into that category. Obviously, they've got some players there. They've got some kids that can, go get the ball. Big offense. But you look at what Eli Drinkwitz has been able to do with Brady Cook. I mean, Brady Cook was not some special quarterback prospect. In the way that they've developed him. Sam Horn is somebody that is up there still, and was a talented kid coming out of the state of Georgia. Matt Zollers would be really special too.
I tell you what, I don't want to get too deep into it, but I still on the sideline for Georgia, Missouri, and I didn't realize how fast Brady Cook was. Georgia did a great job on him as the game went on, but there were some plays there that he was like, I didn't realize that dude had that set of wheels, and he had a good arm, obviously, but he hurt Georgia with his legs some. So Zoller's an athlete, man. He was state. I think they played in the Final Four in basketball. He couldn't take visits in early March because he was playing basketball. He was in the finals for that too. So this is a big time athlete, man. And I think Georgia is about to find out. I'll say this: if you walk into Kirby Smart's office and say, "Coach, I'm guaranteeing you're going to get either Juju or you're going to get Matt Zollers," they would be happy.
He's sleeping well tonight.
Yeah. But it just so happens that these guys are one of them's going to make a decision before. And appreciate all the kind words there, neighbor. Appreciate you being a part of us, DawgsHQ, and everybody that's with our site too. Thank you for the words.
Yeah, Rusty, I know the last topic we'll cover tonight. I know this is one that you've been excited about on Twitter. You've been big on it on the message board. Georgia playing basketball in April.
Yeah, man.
It is April 2nd. There are 8 Division I basketball teams, men's Division I basketball teams that are still playing. Georgia is one of those 8. Obviously not the tournament that they wanted to be in with the NIT. would have preferred to be in the NCAA tournament. Georgia, a couple wins here, a couple wins there, hold on to a couple games. They might be in that big dance, but they've made the most of this opportunity that they've gotten in the NIT.
It's a big deal, and not saying I'm the biggest basketball guy. I want to be. I've been around it a few times. I've been around that 96 team before, Tubby Smith and the excitement of Georgia basketball. I mean, I hate to say 96. I mean, damn, that's a long time, man. And but I'll say this: to go win at Wake Forest, to go win at Ohio State, to get an opportunity to do this, if you can win tonight, and then maybe whatever happens obviously if you win the next two, to carry that into the offseason, to carry that into the transfer portal, to say, look, guys, this is what we did. We couldn't finish games. We needed a few more pieces, but once we finished some games, we started winning at the end. You can build that in all season. Mike White can do that. Even if they lose tonight, it just shows. If they play well, it's still some momentum because they went out and played extra games and got an extra month of practice. So I just think this is a big deal for Georgia. Georgia fans desperately want a basketball team that you can watch because, when it's fun, when it's going, man, it's fun and it's so rare. It's been so rare in Athens for whatever reason. I'm not going to sit here and talk about a million things with basketball. Everybody knows. I watched Clemson the other night. They had 4 starters from Georgia, 2 kids that's both of their dads were University of Georgia football, all SEC captains, and Kirby Smart talked about that on the radio the other day. He said those 2 kids used to come to Alabama and do the little pop shot things when they were like 8, 10 years old. And you watched them almost take Clemson to the Final Four. So there's a lot of opportunity in the state of Georgia. I think everybody knows that. I think NIL is heavily involved. I do think Georgia, Palmer, you probably agree. I think Georgia is competitive in the NIL market, and this is going to be another big month for them. But tonight, obviously, is another big opportunity. Everybody that I talk to, I guess, Palmer, you'll know more than me, thinks that Seton Hall is probably the favorite of the 4 teams up there. And Georgia's going to open with them later tonight. Man, 9:30. I'm going to have some coffee to stay up and watch that second half.
Yeah, talking about the favorites of that Final Four, to me, it's either Seton Hall, who had a real, maybe beef with the NCAA tournament selection committee. They were a 1 seed in this NIT for a reason. They were one of the first, teams out. And obviously there were some opt-outs that changed the landscape of the NIT. And, hey, maybe Georgia's not here if Ole Miss doesn't opt out, but Georgia doesn't care. They took advantage of the opportunity that they got, and so that's obviously been exciting to watch. Like you said, 9:30 tonight, ESPN2.
That's rough on old man.
I know. I mean, look, if they could have been the 7:00 tip that Indiana State and Utah, the 4th team in the NIT Final Four, that they got, man, that would have been a lot nicer. But 9:30, I think, whatever time it is, I think Georgia fans are excited to be watching basketball in April.
Yep. So, good time. I think if they can finish off strong here, got a great opportunity in the spring for baseball, softball. Both are going to be really good, really competitive. It's going to have some good stuff to cover. I just think this is a big deal for basketball. And I don't want to dig too much, but got to get women's basketball right. And from my understanding, they have 4 very highly recruited young ladies that have signed, will be in Athens. So, after watching Caitlin Clark and LSU in that whole game, it's exciting. And girls, basketball. Yeah. So I saw the one stat today. LSU in Iowa was the most watched. It was more people watched Iowa and LSU last night than any college football game this year, which is nuts to me. That's crazy.
Any regular season
game. Any regular season game other than Michigan,
Ohio State.
Yeah, which is crazy. That's crazy.
Think about there were some crazy good matchups, and I think I saw that it was more viewed than a lot of the bowl games, the New Year's Six bowls, aside from the playoff 4. It was more viewed than that Orange Bowl that Georgia played.
Was also on a Monday night, and it was prime time, and there wasn't other bowl games. So there's a lot of different variables. But what I'm getting at is, but what I'm getting at is, man, Georgia fans. I think everybody, Tomahawk, Rhett, everybody here would agree, man. Georgia fans want a good basketball program. And
they
there's no
want a
reason
good
not to have
program
one.
in everything other than just football. Football is obviously great. It's what is the bloodline to our site and this athletics program, but to have a prominent basketball program, a successful basketball program, baseball, softball, gymnastics, across the board, track, Kirby Smart wants it too. I mean, Kirby Smart's out there, proponent of all these other sports.
Huge Georgia fan. Kirby Smart is a huge every sport. Huge.
And his wife may be an even bigger basketball fan.
We had Kirby Smart in person Friday for a radio show in Athens, and we're talking to him off the air, and he was like, "I'm going to tennis this afternoon. I'm going to hit the baseball next weekend as soon as practice is over. I got to make a softball game." And he was asking all kind of questions. So he is.
That man never sleeps.
He's for real. He is for real. Now, when people talk about these are the good days, let me tell you something. Somebody that lives, breathes, and eats every sport at the University of Georgia is Kirby Smart, and his wife played basketball here too. So I'm just telling you, that is a you would say a damn good dog, because that guy lives, breathes, and eats it all. He wants every team at Georgia to be really good. So I want to touch on one more thing before we get off here. I know you got covered this game tonight, but another big decision on Friday. Mason Short out of Evans High School, offensive lineman, 2025. Got a chance to meet Mason when he was in the 9th grade. Someone sent me his video. It's like this 6'5" tackle, 9th grader, played 2 years in my Georgia Elite Classic game. I had him twice at MVP camp. Long-time Georgia lean. And all of a sudden he goes down to Alabama, and his coach called me when he got back from Alabama and said, "Man, he had a really good visit, Rusty. I'm just telling you." Really felt kind of at home in Alabama. And I said, "Well, okay, I get it." And I'm still thinking there's a long way to go with this. About 2 weeks later, he goes back to Alabama again with his family. And about 3 days later, he committed. And, he just said there was something about it but Georgia stayed on him. Stacy Searles, credit to him, stayed on him, kept getting him back, kept getting him to games, kept getting him on campus. Matt Luke was the original guy that recruited Mason his last year a little bit. So there was that relationship. So he's going to make his final decision on Friday. He's going to commit to a school. He said he's done. He's made all these visits. He's done with it. He wants to decide. I feel good about Georgia right now. I have not personally talked to Mason, but I have talked to people close to him, and I feel like Georgia's really doing a good job here at the end, really trending at the end. Clemson's another school that was pushing hard. Ohio State was trying to get in there hard. Alabama, when they had a coaching change, that really kind of changed things with them. So we'll see. But Georgia will have a big quarterback decision on Thursday with Matt Zollers. And then on Friday around 3:30, I believe, Mason Short will announce his final school, a young man out of Augusta area, Evans High School. So crazy as it sounds, early April, we got a couple of big UGA targets going to make decisions this week. So we'll have you covered all week on that, on DawgsHQ, and we'll have an update probably tomorrow morning or late tonight on Matt Zollers for sure on his visit.
Of course. Yeah. DawgsHQ, the place to be for all your UGA sports. Georgia spring practice, Georgia basketball, Georgia baseball, Georgia recruiting. We got you covered with it all. But that'll do it for us tonight. Rusty Mansell, Palmer Toms. This has been the Georgia Show.